Yeah. So, I mean, as I've gone down this rabbit hole of TacFit, I started, studying neuroscience and just all this applied neuroscience and just different fascia. Those are the two things that I've really like just been obsessing about. And as I've learned, like every single piece of like TACFIT, for example, the TACFIT certification test, like it's body weight movements,
Mm.
and like our vestibular, how our head moves in space, there's like three canals, right? There's like jello, basically, in jello, in each of the like canals. There's like some rocks on top of the jello, and then there's like a nerve on the bottom of the jello. And so when your head moves this way, the rocks go one way, and it gives feedback to the brain where your head is in space, right? And so
Mm.
it matters. It's only like the size of your thumbnail, but it matters because it's always integrating with your visual system. You have like three satellite systems: your visual, your vestibular system, right? And your all of your skin, proprioception, like the skin, the ligaments, tendons, and they're always communicating. So it sharpens all those things up. It gets them it gets that GPS clear. For example, if you're out of Wi-Fi, right, and you're trying to find the map, and it's kind of, you can't zoom in, right, to know where you're at.
Hmm.
So it's clearing that map. And because of that, when you're not sure where you're at, things get tight. Your
Hmm.
mobility decreases. Your nervous system
Interesting.
just automatically tightens up. And so when you clear that map, when you get those satellites talking to each other, your mobility increases. Things start to function better. There's less stress on your body. You start to think better. Um, and yeah, you
So,
start
so you're that. I
better.
mean, that sounds awesome. Um, but how are you clearing that map? Would you say, is it through the different movements? Is it head movements? Is it just the whole system,
Right.
mobility?
It's the whole system, right? And it's
Okay.
like, man, it's like a never ending thing. It's a way of life. And I look at it as we're martial artists. I look at it as a martial art. Okay.
Mm.
With jujitsu, for example, you have an opponent in front of you, right? The hardest opponent is ourselves, right?
Mm.
With TacFit, you only have yourself. So I look at it, it's a fight with myself. And who's my opponent? My opponent is me in keeping my technique. So, for example, you want stress, but not too much stress, right? So we always try to stay in the 60 to 80% of our heart rate max. Because like the neuroplasticity, like the learning, the changing in the brain, right?
Hmm.
You want to be in that stress, but you need stress, but not too much stress. So you don't want to have the heart rate going higher. So you start to overbreathe, right? When your heart rate goes higher. You want to keep the structure. When you're too stressed, what happens to your traps? They come up. What happens to the elbows, right? In jiu-jitsu, like your elbows, you're in the guard, you're always trying to open up the guy's elbows, right, to make him weak.
Yep.
Same thing when you're passing the guard, you don't want to keep your elbows out like that. You want to keep them in, right?
Yep.
And so you want to keep the structure under stress, your breath, and then the quality of the movement. You start to break down as you get more stressed out. I don't know if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
make it stick. You make it stick. You make that GPS stick, under stress. So, you know what I mean? And because of that, things get sharper and clearer. Those connections, right? Just that myelin, right? That the pathways get thicker and thicker and thicker. Just like you drill an armbar, it gets better and better and better. And if you don't use it, you lose it, right? If you stop doing arm bars, if you stop doing certain things, patterns, right? You lose it, right? You're not as sharp as you once were.
Sure.
And with TACFIT, we move in all the different directions. For example, the TACFIT certification, it's body weight one, right? But we use all the tools, right? We use gymnastic rings, we use club bells, we use kettlebells, we use steel maces now,
Okay.
because of Isik, right? Isik Milan, who's what OG TACFIT legend.
Yep.
Um, we use all the different tools, parallettes, ply bar, everything, we use all the stuff, and it's all based on the principles of the system. For example, Scott breaks it down because he had learning disabilities,
Okay.
Scott's son,
Okay.
so he's diagnosed with learning, that's whatever they said, right? So he has to break things down, dyslexic, everything else. So you have to break things down like simple, compound, complex. So the way he breaks everything down, he has to make it simple. And because of that, all these crazy neuroscience things like you're able to understand it. And it's not just explaining it, but he actually has put it into a system. So instead of talking about it, you just do it. And when you do it, you get the changes within. And we've been doing it now here in LA, here in Burbank, for the last 7 years in a group setting.
Okay.
And I went on a whim, not a whim. I knew it worked, but it's been a crazy journey. But the same thing has happened to everybody that has done it.
Awesome.
They get the same benefits.